The brass key felt cold between my fingers as I twisted it in the lock of my bedroom door. Christmas morning, and my own children had locked me away like some embarrassing family secret. Through the thin walls of Jason's suburban house, I could hear them laughing downstairs. My son Jason, my daughter-in-law Cynthia, and their 2 teenagers. The scent of honey glazed ham drifted up from the kitchen. I pressed my ear against the door, my knees protesting as I crouched down. The hardwood was cold against my cheek, but I needed to hear this. I needed to understand what had become of my family. "Mom's finally quiet," Jason said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of exasperation. "Maybe we can actually enjoy Christmas for once." My chest tightened. I'd raised this boy, worked double shifts at the textile factory to keep him in clean clothes and hot meals after his father walked out. And now at Christmas, I was the inconvenience. Cynthia's laugh tinkled like broken glass. Thank God. I was about to lose it if she complained about the stuffing one more time. Like, we get it, Angela. Your mother's recipe was better. But guess what? She's been dead for 20 years. The teenagers, my grandchildren, giggled. 17-year-old Jeffrey and 15-year-old Brenda, who used to beg for my stories about the old days, who used to help me bake cookies every Christmas Eve. Now they were part of the chorus, laughing at Grandma's expense. No one here has patience for old lady drama, Cynthia continued. I mean, she's been here 3 days and already reorganized my spice rack and told us 5 times about how Christmas used to be different. Different how? More boring? Brenda asked, and the laughter erupted again. Something inside me cracked like ice on a pond. Not broke, cracked. There's a difference. When something breaks, it's sudden, explosive. When it cracks, it's slow, inevitable, and far more dangerous. I stood up and walked to the window. Jason's house sat on a cul-de-sac in suburban Minneapolis, all identical lawns and matching mailboxes. Through the frost-covered glass, I could see other families gathering, other grandmothers being welcomed into warm kitchens, not locked away like burdens. The key was still in the lock on their side. I could hear them moving around, probably settling in for their peaceful Christmas morning. In the distance, a church bell chimed. Christmas service was starting at St. Matthew's, where I'd taken Jason every Sunday for 18 years. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, my bed now, since I'd sold my house 6 months ago and moved in with them. The quilt was one I'd made myself 30 years ago when I still believed in family traditions and permanent homes. My fingers traced the pattern, wedding ring stitches. Each one a prayer for lasting love, for generations staying close. My purse sat on the dresser containing everything I own now. $847 in cash, my social security card, my driver's license, and a small photo of Jason at age 7, gap-toothed and proud, holding up a fish we'd caught at Lake Minnetonka. That boy had loved me once, had needed me. I opened the purse and looked at the cash again. Not enough for a deposit on an apartment, but enough for a bus ticket. Enough for a hotel room for a week, maybe 2 if I was careful. Enough for a new beginning, though I couldn't imagine what that would look like at my age. Downstairs, someone turned on the television. The familiar sounds of holiday programming filled the house, normal Christmas morning sounds for a normal family, just not a family that included me. I pulled out a piece of paper from the nightstand drawer and began to write. My dear family, thank you for making this Christmas so memorable. I've learned more about my place in this house in the past 3 days than in the 6 months I've been living here. I've decided to give you the gift you really want for Christmas, my absence. Don't worry about me. I've managed to take care of myself for longer than you've been alive. Jason, I hope you find the peace you're looking for. Cynthia, enjoy your spice rack, it's organized alphabetically now. Jeffrey and Brenda, maybe when you're older, you'll understand why your grandmother needed to leave. Don't look for me. I'll be fine. With love and disappointment, Angela. I folded the note carefully and set it on the pillow. Then I opened my suitcase and packed everything that mattered. 3 changes of clothes, my mother's jewelry, the photo of Jason, and my address book filled with names I hadn't called in years. At the bottom of the suitcase, I found something I'd forgotten, a business card from a real estate agent in northern Minnesota. Janet Waters, specializing in rural properties. I'd met her at a rest stop 6 months ago when I was driving to Jason's house for the first time. She'd mentioned something about old farmhouses going cheap in the Lake Country. People are always looking for places to start over, she'd said. Sometimes the best thing you can do is buy a house nobody else wants and make it into something beautiful. I slipped the card into my coat pocket and zipped the suitcase closed. Through the door, I could hear them opening presents, the rustle of wrapping paper and exclamations of delight. A normal Christmas morning, just without the inconvenient grandmother. The guest room was on the 2nd floor, but there was a trellis outside, covered with dormant grapevines. The window opened with a soft creak. Cold December air rushed in, carrying the scent of snow and possibility. I threw my suitcase down first, watching it land in the snow-covered bushes below. As I climbed down the trellis, my coat catching on the frozen vines, I could still hear them laughing inside. My feet touched the ground and I retrieved my suitcase from the bushes. The snow crunched under my boots as I walked toward the street, not looking back at the house where I'd been tolerated but never wanted. At the end of the driveway, I turned left toward the bus station, my breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Behind me, the laughter continued, but it was getting fainter with each step. Soon it would be gone entirely, replaced by the sound of my own footsteps on the snowy sidewalk, walking toward whatever came next. The journey north. The Greyhound bus station in downtown Minneapolis smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. I sat on a plastic chair watching the departure board flicker with destinations I'd never considered before: Duluth, Grand Rapids, International Falls. Places where nobody knew Angela Campbell, where nobody expected anything from me except the price of a ticket. My phone buzzed, Jason's number. I let it ring until it stopped, then watched as the voicemail notification appeared. By the 4th call, I pulled out the phone and turned it off completely. Whatever panic was unfolding in that suburban house was no longer my problem. I need a ticket north, I said to the young man behind the counter. Somewhere with lakes, somewhere quiet. Grand Rapids, I said, remembering the name from the departure board. When's the next bus? Gets you there around 8 tonight. You got a place to stay? I didn't, but I nodded anyway. The ticket felt thin in my hand, insubstantial for something that represented such a massive change. As Minneapolis faded behind us, replaced by frozen farmland and scattered houses, I pulled out Janet Waters' business card. The paper was soft from handling, the edges worn. Maybe some part of me had always known this day would come. At the Grand Rapids station, I was the only passenger who got off. The building was smaller than a convenience store. The main street stretched out in front of me, lined with shops that were closed for the holiday. It looked like a movie set, too perfect, too quiet, too much like the kind of place where nothing ever happened. Perfect. The Northwoods Inn sat on the corner, a 3-story building that had probably been elegant once. Now it looked tired but clean. The lobby was small and warm with a fireplace that actually worked. An older woman sat behind the desk reading a paperback novel. "You need a room?" she asked, closing her book. "Yes, please. Just for tonight. $65, that includes breakfast." She slid a registration form across the desk. Name? For a moment, I considered using a fake name, starting completely fresh. But Angela Campbell had gotten me this far. She deserved to see how the story ended. "Angela Campbell," I said, writing carefully. "Welcome to Grand Rapids, Angela. I'm Rosa Kelly. I own this place." She handed me a key attached to a wooden block shaped like a loon. Room 23, second floor. You okay, honey? You look like you've had a long day. The kindness in her voice almost broke me. When was the last time someone had asked if I was okay and actually wanted to hear the answer? I'm fine, I said, then added, just making some changes. Well, sometimes changes are good. Sometimes they're necessary. Finding home. The next morning, I called Janet Waters. She pulled up to the inn in a red pickup truck, her gray hair tucked under a wool hat. You must be Angela, she said. I have to say, when you called this morning, I wasn't sure you were serious. Most people don't go house hunting the day after Christmas. Most people don't run away from home on Christmas Day, I replied. Her laugh was genuine. Fair enough. Well, climb in. I've got 3 properties to show you, and they're all what I'd call diamonds in the rough. The first house appeared through the trees like something from a fairy tale. 2 stories of white clapboard siding, green shutters, and a wraparound porch. A red barn sat behind it, paint faded but structure still solid. The owner died last spring, Janet explained. Her kids live in California, want to sell quick. They're asking $45,000, but they'd probably take $38,000. I had less than $800 in my purse. We stepped into a world that time had forgotten. Wallpaper with tiny roses, hardwood floors that needed refinishing, a kitchen with cabinets painted mint green. But the windows were large and let in floods of natural light. The previous owner was named Louise Qualls, Janet said. Lived here for 60 years, raised 7 kids in this house. Always had coffee on and cookies in the jar. I could picture her at the stove, gray-haired and aproned, teaching granddaughters how to make pie crust. In the kitchen, I opened cabinet doors and found dishes left behind, mismatched china, mason jars, a rolling pin worn smooth by decades of use. On the windowsill above the sink, someone had left a small ceramic rooster, its paint chipped but its expression eternally optimistic. What happened to her things? I asked. The kids took what they wanted, donated the rest, but they left the furniture that was too big to move easily. The house comes with 12 acres, Janet continued. There's a vegetable garden that's overgrown now, but the soil's good. 12 acres. I tried to imagine that much space belonging to me, that much privacy and possibility. This is the one, I said, standing on the sagging porch. I want to make an offer. Janet's expression was kind but practical. Angela, I have to ask, do you have financing lined up? I thought about my $800, about my Social Security payments that barely covered basic living expenses. Then I thought about Jason's laughter, about Cynthia's casual cruelty. I have some money, I said. Not enough for the full purchase, but enough for a down payment. Owner financing, Janet said immediately. If you can put down $5,000 and agree to monthly payments, they might work with you. $5,000. It was more than I had, but not impossibly more. That night, back in my hotel room, I spread all my financial documents on the bed. At the bottom of a folder I rarely opened, I found something I'd forgotten, a certificate of deposit my mother had bought for me with instructions not to touch it until I was old enough to appreciate security. The CD was worth just over $4,000. With penalties for early withdrawal, but old enough to appreciate security. At my age, having just decided to buy a farmhouse sight unseen, I finally understood what my mother had meant. 3 months later. I was in the garden behind the farmhouse pulling weeds from what had once been Louise Qualls' vegetable patch when I heard the car door slam. I didn't look up immediately. I'd been expecting this moment since the day I'd climbed out that bedroom window. Jesus Christ, Mom, what the hell have you done to yourself? Jason's voice carried the same exasperation it had held on Christmas morning, but now it was seasoned with shock. I stood up slowly, brushing dirt from my hands, and turned to face my son. He looked older than he had 3 months ago. Behind him, Cynthia stood next to their rental car, her arms crossed. "Hello, Jason," I said, my voice steady. "How did you find me?" "It took 3 months and a private investigator," he said. "Do you have any idea what you put us through, disappearing on Christmas Day?" "I left a note." "A note?" Cynthia's voice was sharp. "You left a note and disappeared for 3 months. We thought you were dead." I looked at her for a long moment. "No," I said quietly. "You hoped I was gone. There's a difference." Jason stepped between us. "Mom, please." We were worried sick. "No," I said. "But I know what it was like to be locked in a bedroom while my family laughed about my old lady drama. I know what it was like to be treated like a burden." Jason looked around the property, the farmhouse with its fresh coat of white paint, the garden I'd been reclaiming, the small sign by the driveway that read, "Qualls Rest, a place for travelers." "What is this place?" he asked. "It's my home and my business," I said. "I run a bed and breakfast. Small scale, but it's growing." It was true. Word had spread slowly. I'd had guests, a mix of women traveling alone, writers looking for quiet places to work, people who needed somewhere to land while they figured out their next chapter. "A bed and breakfast," Cynthia repeated. "Mom, you don't know anything about running a business." "I worked in a textile factory for 30 years, raised a son, managed a household, and solved problems every day for decades," I replied. "Turns out those are exactly the skills you need." "How did you afford this?" Jason asked. "I had resources you didn't know about," I said. "Amazing what you can accomplish when you're not spending money on other people's problems." The jab landed. Jason's jaw tightened. "Look," Jason said, his voice taking on a reasonable tone. "We came here to apologize. Things got out of hand at Christmas. Cynthia feels terrible about what she said." Cynthia's smile looked painted on. "Of course. It was a stressful time with all the cooking and the kids home from school. I didn't mean for you to take it so seriously." Even her apology was an insult, suggesting that my feelings were an overreaction to her innocent stress. "I see," I said. "So when you said no one had patience for old lady drama, that was just stress talking?" "Yes, exactly. And when everyone laughed, that was also stress." "Well, families joke around. You know how it is." "I do know how it is," I said. "That's why I left." The silence stretched between us. Jason shifted uncomfortably. "The point is," he said, "we want you to come home. We've missed you." "Have you?" I asked. "Or have you missed having someone to blame for family tension?" I gestured toward the house, the garden, the life I'd built. "In 3 months, I've created something here. I have guests who thank me for my hospitality. I have neighbors who stop by to check on me. I have a life where my opinions matter and my presence is welcomed, not tolerated." "But Mom," Jason said, his voice cracking slightly, "you're our family." There it was, the weapon that had kept me compliant for so long. Family. As if the word itself should be enough to make me forget how I'd been treated. "Yes," I said. "I am your family. And for 67 years, I've put family first. But when I needed family to put me first, when I needed to feel valued and respected and loved, what I got was a locked bedroom door and laughter at my expense." Jason's face crumpled slightly, and for a moment, I saw the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. But that little boy had grown into a man who'd locked his mother away so his family could enjoy Christmas in peace. "What do you want from us?" Cynthia asked, her voice tight with frustration. "I don't want anything from you," I said finally. "That's the point. For the first time in my adult life, I don't need anything from anyone. I'm complete exactly as I am. But you're our responsibility, Jason said desperately. You're getting older. I need respect, I cut him off. I need to be valued for who I am, not tolerated because of who I used to be. I picked up my gardening tools and started walking toward the house. You're welcome to stay for dinner if you'd like. I'm making pot roast, the same recipe I used to make for you when you were young. But if you stay, you'll be guests in my home, not family members demanding that I give up my life to make yours easier. 1 year later. I was hanging Christmas lights on the wraparound porch when the phone rang. Through the kitchen window, I could see my latest guest, Beverly, a recently divorced woman from Chicago, helping herself to coffee and homemade cinnamon rolls. The caller ID showed Jason's number. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello, Jason. Mom. His voice sounded different, smaller, less certain. How are you? I'm well. Busy with the Christmas season. I'm booked solid through New Year's. That's great, Mom. Really great. A pause. Listen, I was calling about Christmas. We'd like to invite you to dinner if you want to come. No pressure. What's changed, Jason? A lot of things. Cynthia and I have been going to counseling, and the kids have been asking about you. Brenda especially. She wants to know why Grandma doesn't come around anymore. And what do you tell her? The truth. That we treated you badly and you left because of it. The honesty surprised me. Brenda's 17 now, Jason continued. She's applying to colleges, and she said something that really hit me. She said she hoped she'd be brave enough to stand up for herself when she got older, the way her grandmother did. I felt something shift in my chest, a loosening of tension I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten it was there. I appreciate the invitation, I said finally, but I can't leave the business. I have guests. On Christmas Day especially, the holidays are hard for people who don't have traditional families. They need somewhere to go. Maybe, Jason's voice was tentative, maybe we could come there. I know it's your place, but if there's room. I considered this. The house would be full. I'd invited several of my former guests to return for the holidays. You'd be guests, I said. Not family visiting family, but paying guests at a bed and breakfast. Same rules as everyone else. Of course. Whatever you think is fair. $200 per night, 3-night minimum, meals included. But you help with dishes and respect the other guests' privacy. That's fine. More than fine. Christmas morning. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and temperatures cold enough to make your breath visible indoors. The house was full, 8 guests, plus Jason's family, all moving around each other with careful politeness. Jason and Cynthia had arrived exactly at 4 the previous afternoon, their usual confident demeanor replaced by something more cautious. They'd followed the rules, helped with dinner preparation, and made genuine efforts to connect with the other guests. Brenda had surprised me most. At 18 now, she'd grown into her grandmother's cheekbones and her grandfather's stubborn chin. She'd spent the evening before helping me prepare Christmas breakfast. I'm sorry, she said as we worked side by side rolling out biscuit dough, about that Christmas, about laughing when Mom said those things. I was 15 and stupid and I thought being mean was the same as being grown up. Apology accepted, I said. But more importantly, what did you learn? That families should build each other up, not tear each other down. And that I want to be the kind of woman who stands up for herself like you did. After breakfast, we gathered in the living room for the gift exchange I'd instituted. Small handmade things that represented the giver's interests. Jason gave me a photo album filled with pictures of our family from better times. The last page held a single photo, me standing on the porch of this house, looking strong and content. I wanted to remember all of it, he said quietly. The good parts and the parts where I failed you, so I don't forget either one. But Brenda's gift made me cry. She handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver pendant shaped like a key hanging from a delicate chain. It's to remind you, she said, that you always have the key to your own life, and that you taught me I have the key to mine too. Later, as the afternoon light faded, Jason found me in the kitchen washing dishes. Thank you, he said. For letting us come, for giving us a chance to do better. This isn't forgiveness, I said. This is a beginning. If it's going to work, it has to be different than it was before. I know. I spent most of my adult life thinking that being a man meant making decisions for everyone else. I thought I was protecting you by managing you. I was wrong. Yes, you were. The woman who left last Christmas was right to leave. And the woman who built this place, she's amazing. I'm proud to be your son, even if I don't deserve to be. You'll always be my son, I said finally. But if you want to be part of my life, it has to be as equals. I'm not your responsibility and you're not my authority. Equals, he repeated, as if testing the word. I can live with that. Good, because I've learned that I can live without it if I have to. That evening, I sat on my porch wrapped in my quilt, watching the snow fall in the lamplight. The house glowed warm behind me, full of people who'd chosen to spend Christmas in a place that felt like home. My phone buzzed with texts from former guests, thank you messages, love notes, promises to return next year. Then one from Brenda, love you, Grandma. Thanks for teaching me to be brave. I looked out at the 12 acres that belonged to me, at the barn where Beverly was probably still working on her pottery, at the garden where I'd plant flowers come spring. Sometimes the most devastating thing you could do to people who'd undervalued you was to prove them wrong by building a life so rich and full that their absence from it was barely noticeable. But sometimes, if they were willing to change, if they were willing to meet you as equals in the life you'd created, it could transform into something else entirely. Something like redemption. Something like family chosen deliberately and built on respect. Something like home. I fingered the silver key at my throat and smiled. Tomorrow, I'd have new guests arriving, women looking for a place to rest and regroup, to remember their worth and plan their next chapters. The snow continued to fall, covering the world in new possibilities. And I went inside to my chosen family, to my thriving business, to the life I'd built one brave decision at a time. I was finally home.